Good afternoon, my dudes. It is the day before Wednesday, so we won't be screaming like any very loud toads or frogs. But it's time for the Turbo Tortoise buyer's guide. Well, in this case, it's the Turbo Tortoise tutorial on how to test your PC. I'm going to show you a couple of really cool applications that you can use to pick up faults in your hardware or just make sure that it's working as intended. A couple of them are like freemium, as it were. They would be better if you maybe spent a little bit of money and just held on to them for like the foreseeable future, but a lot of them are completely free and they will be, I would say, quite handy when it comes to troubleshooting your machine before you send it back for warranty. Then at least you will know generally which part might be giving you a problem, and then it's just gonna smooth out that experience. And hey, I mean, if you can even go so far as to identify the fault yourself, then you can only take that part in, get it swapped out, and then get a new one basically at the same time, which is just going to make your lives a lot easier and everybody else attached to the process. The first of the testing softwares that I'm going to suggest to you is AIDA64, and this is quite a comprehensive one. If you go over here to this little, as you can see, this burn-in kind of sign over here, you click on that, you'll get this window over here. Yours should look exactly the same unless you own a copy. Don't worry about it, you get a 30-day free trial. So then you can stress your CPU, your floating point calculations on your CPU, your cache and your system memory, as well as your hard drives and your graphics cards, all directly from this. So you can do them one at a time, and generally I would say if your component makes it past 20 minutes or 30 minutes worth of AIDA64, then it's going to be just fine. I'm not going to do it now because I'm trying to record over the same machine, and it really will use 100% of each of those components. Whatever is left over from Windows, etc., it's going to use 100%. So just be aware when you do it, your machine might become what I would call maybe a little bit unresponsive. But if you go to the statistics over here, then you can see your temperatures, your fan speeds, the core speeds for your CPU, how much boost it gave per core, what the maximum clocks are, etc., etc. And you can make sure that the machine is running as expected. Another great one for testing GPUs is FurMark. This will really test your core to its absolute limits. It doesn't unfortunately usually test the VRAM completely, but you'll be greeted by a little window like this, and then from here you can select a resolution. So we're going to drop it down because once again I'm recording at the same time over here from this machine, and then you just click run over here, and then you've got different kinds of tests, but just leave it on the default. It's going to show your GPU over there with its current temperature and activity, and then if I click run, then this little window will pop up, and now it's trying to use as much of the core as humanly possible. As I said, this only really tests the core, so it's not going to test if your VRAM has a problem. We'll actually get to that in 3D Mark, which is going to be one of the other ones that I suggest for doing stress testing. But this is a really good little stress test that you can leave on in the background to test your GPU, and you can see it's really pushing up the temp and pushing the GPU to its absolute maximum, especially on the core. Then we have one of my absolute favorites in testing is 3D Mark. It's still the best kind of general synthetic benchmark for testing your equipment, especially for performance variances. If we go over here to benchmarks, you guys, even on your free versions, you'll still have access to Firestrike and TimeSpy. These are the kind of two most important because it's for DirectX 12 and DirectX 11, which is then pretty much all of the games that we will still be currently playing. Anything before that, we're not really worried. But if you get to the end of a run, it will also tell you, if I load up a benchmark over here from something else that I've tested. So we've got the Tough A15, which is a great example for this. If I load up this Firestrike score, at the end over here, it will tell me what my score is versus the average and then the best score that's come out. So I can see there's the blue line for the average. My score was quite a bit higher. So it means that my components are running as expected, and this is built up of all of the laptops that have this combination of GPU and CPU is basically what it's looking at. So if we scroll down over here, you can see it's got a physics test, it's got a combined test where it's doing physics and graphics at the same time and loading both to the absolute maximum, and then giving you a result that's based off of, once again, like I said, your CPU and your particular GPU. So it's going to give you those results out quite nicely. Another thing with this is the stress test. I'm not sure if this is in the free version, But this is a really good test to check your GPU stability. So once again, if I go to results and I just load one quickly.
A few minutes later.
So when the benchmark is finished, this is what you'll see. And then you'll see a rating over here. 98% is a pass. And really, this is showing the frequency consistency. So you can see the clock frequency on this was almost always hitting the exact same area between the GPU clock as well. We were fluctuating between 920 and 935. But these lines over here for the GPU are nice and straight. And this is basically the frame rates between the best and the worst loops. They were almost comparable. They were very, very close to each other. And then it tells you based on your hardware what the pass rate kind of is. And you want to obviously get that as close to 100% as humanly possible, because then it means your machine is performing at a stable rate. The last of the CPU tests that I'm going to suggest to you is Cinebench. You can use it for testing your GPU as well, but this is a really good way to test throttling, that your multi-threaded performance is what it should be, your single core performance is performing well. It's just generally a very good test. And if you go to advanced benchmark up top over here, as you see, you do that, then you can change the minimum test duration. So you can go for 30 minutes to test your stability, for 10 minutes for throttling as it shows over there, or just have it off. And then when you click start, it's going to run. My CPU is running in a very reduced power state at the moment. So it's not going to, because obviously I'm recording at the same time, I've kind of got to have some processor so that I can still run the other applications and stuff in the background. But then you'll see this run, and then when it completes, you'll get a score on the left hand side, and they've got a whole bunch of reference points over here. So for instance, if you have an 8-core CPU and it's running behind a 1700X, there might be a small issue over there. And you can easily quickly pick that up. Then you can look at your CPU temps if you need to. There's a fantastic little app which I'll jump to right now to show you how to check that. Welcome to HWMonitor. This is from CPU ID, the same guys that do CPU-Z, which is a little tool to show you your motherboard information, your RAM and your CPU, and how fast it's going and the voltages, etc., etc. But you can monitor it live from here. Some of this is theoretical. Some of you actually is in the comments. I'm aware that it is theoretical, for instance, with the wattage, but it's very accurate. It's within a couple percent, like 1 to 3% of what you're actually drawing and such. Main thing is you can check all of your temps over here, which is pretty sick that you can check those out. You've got your system fans, so you can make sure all of them are reading and running correctly, which is going to be helpful for your cooling. Obviously, you can check your memory and utilization, but you can just collapse any of those so you can make sure that you're looking at the ones that you want. So for instance, I don't really care about my CCXs. Power is nice to see, so I can see exactly how much power I'm drawing, for instance. But there, I've got my package, my temperatures, and my clock speeds coming through from the 5900X over there. So you can see very easily at a glance how those are all performing. Then you can see for your various drives and stuff. Mine are, I would say, running cool, calm, and collected for the most part. It's just this is my main drive, which is currently obviously quite busy at the moment. For instance, so it gives you a good example. This is my secondary drive, so that's on the side. So yeah, it'll give you your GPUs and all of your powers and stuff, so you can monitor just about anything you want from here. And finally, the last little app that I want to suggest to you is CrystalDiskMark 6, specifically 6.0.2. The specific version has really good testing for the smaller file sizes. So I'm not going to bombard my C drive any more than I have already. We'll take it on the F drive. We'll just make it a quick test on a 1 gig size. You can test at 32 gig sizes so that you can test throttling on your NVMEs or your drives to see if there's a caching issue, which is kind of nice. But from there, you just click all and it's going to run them test by test, and then at the end you'll get a score for each of those. And then in this particular test, I've been using it on the channel pretty much exclusively. So if you look at any of the SSD tests that I've done, you can see reference points, or any of the other drives that I've, like I say, I've tested. So there's tons and tons of reference point for this just on the channel itself. But if you go on the web, you're also going to notice that this test has been used quite a lot. A lot of people didn't really go with 7, 8, or 9 version of CrystalDiskMark because this is kind of old reliable. So from this, you can just make sure your drive is running as intended. Maybe you've got a bus issue, maybe you've put it into the wrong slot, because that can happen. Sometimes if you put a PCI Express 4.0 drive into a PCI Express 3, it'll top out at about 3700 megabytes per second, and then you can easily quickly test and go, oh, okay, I've put it in the wrong slot and it's obviously running into a bus issue. And those are the best programs to test your hardware with. And like I say, if you run them and you do run into problems, there's any of those, then you're generally going to have an issue. I've especially obviously used the benchmarking stuff and 8064 extensively. So basically all of these programs, except for HWMonitor, I use on a daily basis here for the channel. And so I can attest to their reliability across products. It doesn't matter if it's Intel, AMD, or NVIDIA. It's going to work and it's going to test your componentry kind of to its limits. The only one that I can't really say that you can test fully is VRAM. TimeSpy will do a good job of it. Even if it's the free version, you'll have to sit through a demo, which can be a little bit annoying. But that will actually use quite a lot of your video memory, probably at least 8 gigs, even if you've got a 12 or 16 gig card. So it will push it the most that you could possibly hope to push it. Otherwise, go into a high resolution game. Go into a game, set it to really high resolution, and then maybe use MSI Afterburner as a good one. There's an overlay from that you can use to check in game as well. But for the most part, this suite of programs that I've suggested to you at least should be able to test it quite handedly. And next week, Wednesday, we are going to be doing a full benchmarking stream. So I'm going to be benchmarking 7200 megahertz DDR5 RAM live from Clev. And I'm going to have other data and stuff from my existing memory, which is 5200 megahertz Cell38. So it should be quite interesting. 13th gen Intel hasn't been known to have the greatest of differences in RAM, so I think it's going to be quite an intriguing day, to say the least. Anywho, that's all I have for you in this Turbo Tortoise tutorial. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit us up with a like and subscribe, and I will see you on the flip side.